Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to talk about one of the most unthought of things on your car, most taken for granted, but they're the most important thing to keep you on the road, and that's your car's tires. Nobody ever thinks about it until it's too late and you get a flat tire or you get stranded somewhere. Realize your car is riding on air that's inside your tire. Keeps you from sliding, gives you traction. It also absorbs a lot of the shocks. You would be surprised at the difference in ride that you can get out of a car just by changing the type of tire that it has on. One of the reasons that these normal tires, they're not low profile, they're just normal tires, ride much better than the low profile ones. Because the low profile ones don't have much of a sidewall. They can't flex when you hit bumps. They don't save the tire and the rim when you hit a big pothole. You hit a pothole with these, and we've hit lots of potholes. You get enough flexibility, and there's enough distance between the tire and the rim that generally the rim doesn't hit the metal. It gets enough flexibility, it doesn't pop the tire, bend the rim. But with the low profile ones, you only got a little bit. Little hit, boom, boom, out they go. A lot of times you can buy a tire and a rim. You're much better off with normal tires for any kind of driving. You buy the tires, you put air in them once in a while, and then you forget about them. Now today I'm going to share you a story about tires that fooled even me. I was hearing noise driving down the road, so I heard it coming from the back, so I jacked up the car, spun the wheel around, see if it was out of round, had any lumps. It didn't. Checked the tire pressure was fine. Looked at the tread, it had plenty of tread. So since it was a rhythmical noise, the faster you went, the louder the noise, I thought, hey, the wheel bearing's going out. Now a lot of times, wheel bearings, when they're up in the air and you spin them, they don't make any noise, but they only make noise when the weight of the car is sitting on the wheel bearing, straining it, loading it. Then it starts making a roaring noise the faster you go. So I thought, okay, simple, it needs a wheel bearing assembly. Now the car does have like 118,000 miles on it. They're the original wheel bearings, so I thought, okay, I'll buy a wheel bearing for that side. And especially being on the right side of the car, the wheel bearings tend to go out more because when you're driving down the road, you're on the left side. You can see what's in front of you, and you're generally going to avoid potholes. But you can't see the right side as good, so often your right rear tire hits more potholes, and that can wear the bearing out. So I put a new bearing on. And here's the bearing assembly. You can see it is rusty and stuff. But I put it on, put it all back together again, and lo and behold, it was making the same stinking noise. So I'm like, ah. So I looked closer at the old tire. The old tire, you can see it's got tons of tread, but when you look closely, really closely, you can see it's getting a bunch of tiny cracks all on the inside of the tread. Zoom in there. You can see the tiny little cracks now. Now, it wasn't losing pressure. It was the same pressure as all the other tires. Obviously, internally, the thing was starting to come apart and the cracks are showing on the outside. So when you were going down the road, it was no longer perfectly round, even though it looked okay when you jacked it up here again. The only way you can test anything is under a load, just like the wheel bearings. You can spin them in the air. They might not make any noise, but when you're going down the road and the weight of the car can make a noise. Well, the stupid tires can do the same thing. So, just out of a tire machine, I took it to a local tire store and I got a brand new tire. And lo and behold, the noise was completely gone. Now you get noise from lots of things, but the way you can tell that if it is coming from your car and not the road is this. Take it out on the highway on a smooth asphalt part. Not concrete. Concrete's noisy, and a lot of times tires will make more noise because of the concrete being hard and the tires rolling over. Find a nice asphalt straightaway and drive on it. If you don't get any noise then, most of your stuff is just road noise then, because of the materials the roads are made out of. That was the problem. It even fooled me because it looked okay, but I didn't look close enough at those cracks. And those cracks are showing an underlying problem, which in this case is probably the belts inside the tire are starting to come apart. Then they're pushing up and cracking the rubber, even though it didn't lose air yet. It was making that noise. Ultimately, it'd be a dangerous thing. You never know. And speaking of dangerous things, and tires, here's my son's brand new Triumph, and you can see it has a flat tire, even though it only has 453 miles on it. You can see here, Metzeler tires on it. Now, they only make motorcycle tires, and they used to be great great motorcycle tires, but obviously they are not anymore. My son bought this. I warned him. I said, look, they got a recall for problems on the Pirelli tires that they're putting on these Triumphs. You better check into it. Well, the dealer told him, oh, don't worry, those aren't Pirelli tires that have the problems. They're Metzeler tires. But guess what? Not only does Pirelli own Metzeler, but the tires are made in the same factory. Obviously, they have problems. He has less than 500 miles. I was riding with him. We heard a pop. And luckily, it was just down the street, and we were only going 35 miles an hour. So he pulled over, and I see the thing's entirely flat, and the tire has popped in the middle. He didn't hit anything. It just split right open. It was lucky it was just half a mile from my house, and he was on a highway going 70 miles an hour. It could have been killed. It'll be interesting to see what the Triumph dealer, they're picking it up in a couple of weeks. That's the nearest they could. I don't even want them to replace this tire with this crap. I want them to replace both tires with a different manufacturer, because obviously these tires have problems. So when you only have two wheels and you get a flat, it's about the most dangerous thing that could happen. The only more dangerous thing would be if you had two flats at the same time. And for those of you who drive motorcycles and maybe are newbies to driving motorcycles, here's a tip. If you get a flat tire and you start losing the front end, it's usually the back tire that goes bad. When the back tire goes flat, you lose so much traction, the front end starts wobbling too. So don't think that you got a front problem. It's usually the rear tire that'll make it shake like that, but you've only got two tires. So you gotta make sure you have good tires and they're full of air. Now, of course, with that small amount of mileage on it, it should definitely never have a problem anyways. But ironically enough, before he came over here, my son checked the air pressure in the tires, and they were totally full. He didn't have to add any. So it wasn't like they were low on air. They're just poorly made tires. And it shows that names don't mean that much anymore. Now, in the past, Pirelli and Metzeler were known as great motorcycle tires, but they had one big problem, and that was that they were very expensive. And it seems from my research that they're trying to get into somewhat lower priced tires to sell more to people riding motorcycles. Attempting to go to lower prices, they've obviously screwed up building these. 450 miles and a tire blows out, that's just uncalled for. Well, thank goodness nobody was injured, and I can't wait to see what this Triumph dealer is gonna do, that you know there's problems with these tires, yet you sell them anyways. And then boom, out on the highway you go. And it is such a shame, because you can see I've got Metzelers which raise 300 to 400 pounds more than a Triumph. I've had no problems at all. But those tires were made when they were making them better. It's unfortunate, but a lot of these companies, they're not making them like they used to. So what's a person to do? Well, do a lot of research. Watch guys like me who give honest reviews of stuff. Times change. A lot of these companies, they either change ownership or change their production to make things cheaper. For example, this DeWalt battery charger, piece of junk. I've got DeWalt tools I've had for decades that still work perfectly fine. But this piece of junk was made in Vietnam. It's horrible, but it's got the name DeWalt. DeWalt's putting their name on it, and they are now watering down their brand. And if you're riding on a fast motorcycle, the last thing you want are substandard tires. That's why, especially if you drive two-wheelers, do research. Ask other guys who have bought these vehicles. And if they are honest, they'll be like me. They'll say, well, those Metzeler tires, you know, they used to be great, but hey, they're having problems now. Just like Toyota. This thing's 18 years old. It's bulletproof. Look at the 100,000 engines they got to replace and the V6 turbos on the Tundras and some of the Lexuses. Toyota still didn't really have any problem with their good four-cylinder engines. This is a 1.8 liter Ford. It's pretty much bulletproof, right? And I warned people. I said, why is Toyota taking the V8 out of the Tundras and replacing with a Turbo 6? I said, there's no way it's going to last as long. Well, even I wasn't forecasting that. Okay, they came out with the twin turbo V6s and the engines are blowing up within a year or two, or sometimes even 20,000 miles. Names, sometimes they don't mean that much anymore, especially with tires, because people are always buying one company or selling another company. But I'll tell you, one thing is, if you see where they're made, that kind of gives you a better idea. For example, my new Goodyear tire, look what it says, made in USA. One time in my life, I bought Chinese tires from my wife's Toyota decades ago. They were pieces of crap. They had blowouts at 7,500 miles. I would today still not buy a tire made in China. And from my experience with the Chinese, the big difference is this. One of the big components of tires is rubber. Well, if you know anything about rubber, when they make it, it's really soft. And they vulcanize it to make it hard to make it last a long time. Old Harvey Firestone figured that when he accidentally dropped some rubber in a heated area and then it got real hard. To make them last, they have to be vulcanized for a while. But vulcanization takes a lot of heat, costs money to heat it up, and it looks like the Chinese just cheap up. They don't heat them either high enough or long enough so that their tires don't hold up over time. I've seen Chinese tires, nails will rip them to shreds. They'll go over a little bit of broken glass and they'll get flats, where good tires, like my Goodyear American ones, go over glass and stuff all the time, and I don't get nails or glass. I don't get any punctures in them. To where a tire is made, it's a big deal. Plus, you don't want to buy an old tire. Tires all have manufacturing dates on. Different companies have different ways of telling. And in the case of this Goodyear tire, if you look at all the numbers, here's the end of the numbers. And the end of the numbers is 1418. That means that it was produced in the 14th week of 2018, making it a 6-year-old tire. It's 6 years old and then it came apart. Well, at least it didn't last just 453 miles in 2 months, like this Metzger tire did on my son's Triumph motorcycle. And if you look at my new tire here, we'll get a flashlight out. You can see it is 5123. So it was made in the 51st week of 2023. So it's a relatively new tire. They only started this in the United States in the year 2000, but then again, it's 2024 now, right? You don't want 24-year-old tires on your car. Hey, that one I had, that only lasted 6 years. So any car from 2000 on, it's going to have that number. And it's tricky because, you know, they could have put the month and the date better, but they go by weeks and the year. So, you know, that's a relatively new tire. You look at one, and let's say you're buying a car now in 2024. If you're looking at a tire that was made in 2020 or 2019, it was brand new, I'd refuse it. I'd say, no, that's an old tire. I want a newer one. You have to look at these things these days because people will sell you anything. Knock horse tires, they need the bare minimum of maintenance. Keep air in them. And of course, realize the laws of physics. If it's 70 degrees out and a cold front comes through and it's 20 degrees outside, the temperature goes down. When the temperature goes down, so does the pressure. So when it gets cold, check your tires and check them when they're cold and fill them up. Like mine, I put 32 PSI. You find out what's good for your car and put it in. But realize this, as you drive your car, the tires get hot. As they get hot, the pressure goes up. You can't take tire pressure correctly when you drive a car and then check it. You got to do it ice cold. So always have one of these things lying around. Little air compressor. Then you can check it at home when they're cold. Throw it in the trunk. I already got another one in the trunk that's even better than this one. So if something ever happens, you got a way to pump it up with air. So now you know how important tires are, and a little bit of maintenance. Keep your car rolling smoothly down the road. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.